Welcome back from Chattanooga.
Man, the quick turnaround.
Yep.
The early bird flight and the red eye is what it feels like.
Yep. And the early bird flight in the rain again on the way home for me.
Oh, I got no rain. It looked like it was going to rain, and it looked like it was going to rain here in Nashville a little bit, but it did not. So.
Well, once again, proving that I am not the early bird. The early bird does not miss whatever.
Yeah,
I did not miss the rain.
Get or miss the bird or the rain. But now I will say though that while you may not be traditionally an early bird, you have early bird attributes. And I think you showed those this weekend. And if you're wondering what Mike was doing this morning, post spectating. So we were probably downstairs in the lobby at 6:15 maybe.
You were.
And got back at the hotel. I think we walked back in the hotel at 10:45, 11.
No, not that late.
I feel like it was. It was in the tens, late tens.
All
so
right.
we'll call it midnight. Like we get back from breakfast and Mike is in the lobby sharing ice cream with 3 very small children.
Don't misconstrue that.
I mean, they weren't small children. They were ages what, like 2 to 12?
Yeah, I don't know if he's... yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, so let's say 2 to 12.
Judge that.
Mike has become quite the popular, he's everyone's favorite uncle. But he made a promise, and if you have kids or you're an aunt or an uncle or you have little cousins or whatever, if you make a promise to a kid, they're not going to forget.
No.
You might tell them to don't do this for the rest of your life and they'll forget tomorrow. But if you say, if you do this, we'll get some ice cream, locked into memory forever and always until you come through. Mm-hmm. And Mike came through this morning early on a Monday. And kudos to you for making that happen, brightening those young children's lives with ice cream at 8:30 on a Monday.
Yeah, I promised it after the race, after their dad came in, Alpon, and he came across the finish line, and I went over to give him a hug and say congratulations, and his kids were right in his shadow going, Mike, where's the ice cream? I said, oh, no. I blew it.
Yeah, well, you're not nearly as elitist and mean as people might think you are.
I know. That's the thing. I was trying to find a Baskin Robbins last night to go back to the room at midnight room service with the Michigan fudge that was delivered from John, which was nice.
From the Sanfords, yeah.
It's already gone to good use.
Yeah, good use, yeah. We were in Chattanooga this weekend for Ironman Chattanooga. Lots to cover and talk about. We won't be able to cover nearly everything we want to today, but we'll definitely cover it a little bit today and on Thursday. But
why? Because we're exhausted.
Yeah, because we are exhausted. But welcome to the first October version, 2019 or 2018 of the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast, and we appreciate you joining us. But yeah, just returned from October. It means we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
Didn't we start late October?
I think so. I can't remember.
I can't remember. It's
one day at a time, bro.
One day, yeah. I've been on the grind. But yeah, we're in Chattanooga this weekend for what was a interesting race. Mm-hmm. I have to say. We were there Thursday, and they pulled the swim cancellation very early, which I thought was a little bit surprising. But when you don't have control over the body of water, the TVA, so the Tennessee Valley Authority, had control over that and basically said you're not swimming. Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of left with nothing else to do. In hindsight, a canceled swim always sucks as people are amped up for it. They want to do it. Most people, then again, a lot of people choose Chattanooga because of the swim, because it's super easy. So I'm sure a lot of people were probably happy. But it's always a tough call. It always kind of sucks the air out of a lot of athletes. But at least it wasn't race morning. I can't. If you're going to pull it, you got to imagine 3 days, 2 days, or 24 hours for is always the best. It gives you a chance to kind of wrap your head around it, get over it, the initial shock, instead of what usually happens. It's like you get to transition. Oh, the weather just got bad and came in. Swim's canceled, and you're like, well, now I don't even want to race. And so, while it probably was very disheartening for many athletes, it looked like for the most part people came around and did the best they could with what the day was given to them.
Right. And let me just say that even though there wasn't a swim, if anybody tries to tell you you're not an Ironman for doing that race yesterday, you can just, tell them where to jump, because that was a ridiculously difficult day, a hard feat. Swim or no swim, that was a legit accomplishment. You kind of think about that going in. It's like, oh man, it doesn't really count or whatever, but it totally counts. And like you said, the swim there. And here's another reason why I was thinking about that is that this morning, I talked to a lot of people who felt like their bike went pretty well, and then the run just destroyed them. And I wondered if, because I like to think about when we go out for long rides and we get out there at 6 in the morning and we just start riding, right? And you don't get warmed up. And a lot of times I have really struggling days out there when that happens. And I just wonder sometimes maybe if the swim as a nice warm-up is underestimated. I mean, we've been training for it, and you get in the water and you kind of wake up and kind of do your own pace, and there's no real grinding, so to speak. And by the time you get out, you're awake, your blood's flowing and everything, and you get on your bike and you kind of have a better, feel for what's going on. And if you start straight out on the bike, I was standing right there at the bike exit, and people were getting on there, and they're an arrow within 50 yards and just pounding. And I'm not saying some of those people probably are used to that, but a lot of people, it might be hard to gauge. Yeah. How to get your way into that bike before to let your legs kind of get into it. And by the time you're done with that bike, maybe you've taken some more out of you than you think, even though you don't have the warm up or the.
Yeah, it's an interesting setup. Mm-hmm. And I think it made it. And I listen. I agree with you. Like you're going to have a lot of people that are going to argue for a million different directions of, is it really an Ironman? And did this, first of all, who cares what anybody else, honestly, who cares what somebody else thinks? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to have naysayers and people who have done like a pancake flat, easiest swim ever, pancake flat bike, cool run that's flat, that probably would have gotten the life sucked out of their soul yesterday on that run course in 93, 94 degree heat with hills that would, like I said, crush your soul. So honestly, who cares? But I agree with you. Like if you made it through yesterday, what was it? Just a tough day. For just a lot of reasons. Listen, the bike is fair to fast. The run is an absolute monster. And so they also, what we kind of failed to mention in the beginning was they changed a little bit of the run course because of the flooding, and the feedback that I got was that it was harder.
Yeah,
so they made a already hard run harder. And it's just like there wasn't a swim, but can we be honest? Like, if there had been a swim, it was going to be fast. And Chattanooga has Ironman, the Ironman version. Chattanooga has never had a DNF in the swim, so you can take that statistic for what it's worth. And you were probably going to get out of the water more than likely in under an hour with minimal effort, and been in your own zone with your own plan. Then you don't have that. You got that taken away, so things kind of go. You kind of get disheartened, and you probably lose a little bit of your adrenaline and pumped up for the event, and you're having self-doubt. Then you're like, well, do I need to change my nutrition strategy? Do I need to change my bike strategy? Race morning, how's it going to be different? I've got to sleep in, so what time should I eat? Should I fuel differently? And then the way that they did the start was they did 2 athletes every 5 seconds, and the first athletes didn't start till 8:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's the last athletes, I think, went off because we had one. That was like the second to last athlete out of transition at almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which is challenging enough in itself to you've got eight. The eight, it basically went from bib number 1 all the way to the last bib number for the most part. But if you were up a little bit further, you kind of got in line and got up a little bit further. But luckily for a lot of people too, especially 2 of our athletes, were kind of saved from no swim because they went down a transition at 6:30, pumped up their tires, got their bikes ready, and on a normal day, next thing they would have done is gotten on the bus and gone to the swim.
Mm-hmm.
And they came, but instead there was no swim, so they came back to transition to get their bikes to kind of get things rolling before the start, and both found their rear tire was flat.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so at least you have time to fix it, even though it's like going to put you in like a little bit of a anxiety, adrenaline dump, and not start off things. You kind of feel like in a rush. At least it was better than the clock running, transition being a mess with no support. So bright side there, but it was tough day logistically, tough day to wrap your head around. I think a lot of people burned way too many biscuits on that bike course because they came out a little bit more fresh, thinking they had extra energy to burn. And on that run course and that heat, I gotta imagine that 80 to 85% of the field walks at least something.
Sure.
You got it. So a lot of, but I agree. Tough day overall. In a day like Ironman, like there are always going to be challenges. So if you overcame them and you finished, congratulations on what that was a tough day. Also had Ironman Maryland, which had to change in their course, but it was still 112 miles, and I mean the times there were just insanely fast.
Oh, were they?
Oh God, yeah. I mean it's pancake flat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the weather conditions were great, and with flat courses like that, you're always going to have just insane drafting. But anyway, so I mean, it was a tough day. So congrats to anybody who finished, any race really. But like you said, don't let anybody tell you any different. It's what you believe in, how it matters to you, and who really cares what anybody else says in the first place.
Yeah. And I mean, what's funny about Chattanooga is that a lot of people end up looking at it and, like you said, I think picking it because the swim. It's like, okay, that part won't take nearly as much stress out of me, and I'll be able to, go downstream and what have you. But then it's almost like the run's an afterthought. But it's a damn hard run course, Yeah. And you don't, I guess, my point is I think a lot of people don't think about it until they're on it, maybe like 7 miles into it going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? It becomes that. And I don't know why people don't think of it at Chattanooga, because I think the bike course kind of gets this sort of like, not easy, but sort of like on the easier side of most bike courses, while in Chattanooga it seems like it could be a lot tougher. But they found a fairly fast bike course, and then there's that run that just sort of gets glazed over, and
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out, man, it never fails. And the idea that they did have to make the run a little bit harder was because there's a hill about mile 8, I guess, Battery Hill. It goes in that neighborhood. It's the first hill out of the Greenway and before you go over the bridge. And the tough part of that hill was actually cut out. But what happened was you had to come back out of the Greenway and get back on that road. And what that road offers is like a long climb, maybe closer to a mile, rather than a steep, short incline. Plus, you're off the Greenway for another mile, which was in shade.
Yeah, and you get shade. Yeah.
So I knew a lot of really, really good runners that were coming in at over 4 hours. I was looking at the pros, and they were all like 3:30s. There was no real, I shouldn't say no, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of super fast run times other than, Beals and a few of those guys. But a lot of the pros were 3:30s, or mid 3:30s.
The top pros were under 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
After you went outside the top 5, getting down to like 15, 20, 25 for the pros, it was you're inching up there dramatically. Mm-hmm. Same to be said, obviously, for age groupers, just fast bike. But it's a different race, yet still is a race. And so kudos to everybody for adjusting on the fly and making things happen. And outside of the swim, again, Chattanooga, great host city. I think it's I would agree. It's not. I don't think it's the greatest finish line. I just don't. But if you finish it, it's a great finish line because any finish line is. But in terms of entertainment and crowd, going nuts thing, it's definitely not a Wisconsin or a Louisville. It's probably more like a lot of the normal. It's probably more like normal races versus Wisconsin and Louisville. Usually, it's just it's like a block party stacked. Just I think when it comes in between two buildings like that, it makes things different.
Yeah.
But the run course, I think, is one of the best run courses to spectate, because there's a million, just the way that the course is designed, there's a million different ways to see people at 4 or 5 different places, and on that run course, you're going to need it, support wise, and so, but still, it's again. We gave this review for Chattanooga 70.3, and we'll give this review for any race where you can park your car when you get there and never have to get in it again until the day after the race. To me, that gives high marks.
Yeah.
I think it makes things easier on the family. But hot weather for, again, basically October, tough day, and so many stories that, just a lot of stories and lessons to be told and shared, and hopefully the ones that we get to sharing will help benefit other listeners besides the ones that it helped on race day.
I had speaking of that run and spectating, and we kind of at least I joked that it is such a friendly spectator run course that you can go around and pop around and meet people at different spots. And actually for spectator, like we were yesterday, I felt like that makes it actually harder on us because it's like you really don't have a lot of excuses. Louisville, it's really hard to get out and spectate and out and back. You got to kind of just see them and then wait, and you don't move a lot. But at Chattanooga, there's many places that you can walk around and do a lot of walking. But on that same vein, I was trying to think of, because we were tracking at least 12 to 15 people. And, we're pretty good at that. We've been doing that a long time, and we have a real good handle on it, I think. But I was thinking of how Ironman might be able to maybe make that a little bit easier, is to maybe mark their timing mats. I know this might sound like a little thing, but it kind of... it's sort of hard to calculate all that stuff in your head. And also, the one thing I was thinking about yesterday would have been perfect, instead of, and maybe just adding a few more timing slots, because there are a ton of people watch right after the pedestrian bridge, right? And they put the timing.
That's a great place to watch.
It's a great place to watch. It's shaded there. There's a lot of people. It's a great little mall, and there's tons of activity and stores and refreshments and whatever you need. And they put the timing mat at 13.1, which makes a lot of sense. But I thought if they would have just put one at the beginning of the bridge, that would have made our lives 100% easier. Because I missed like 3 or 4 people because you're kind of trying to estimate and get the idea when they're coming. But what about a timing mat? A few hundred yards away from a very busy spectating place. That way, people will have a little heads up, a little warning. Hey, they're coming. They should be there in the next, minute or two or whatever. And then there was so many times when I was kind of looking and refreshing, and all of a sudden they passed the 13.1, and we didn't even see them for whatever reason. Because it's hard to always focus when you got literally like a 25-minute, 30-minute window, and you hope that they're keeping pace. You don't know what's going on, and sometimes they speed up, sometimes they're slowing down. You just can't get a handle on it. But if I was just thinking, if you kind of had a better... Like I walked over to Battery Hill, for example, and I was asking people that were over there, even at aid stations or whatever, what mile it was exactly on each loop. And I bet we had to ask like 10 people before they even knew, So it's like, if you knew even that, where large groups of people are watching or whatever, there's a big sign that says mile 8 and mile 21 or whatever it was, because it was kind of a goofy. Everyone was like, well, this is mile 8, so it's mile 16, and I'm like, no, it's not. It doesn't work that way, or whatever. It's like, so just those little things like that, I think would help. It's a little bit of an effort to, timing mats. I know they're probably expensive, but boy, little spectator thoughts along that lines, I think would go a long ways. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, but it's like, let me a little public service announcement for those spectating any more races. Stop using like the GPS marker.
Oh, the map?
Yeah, it's a total waste of time. It's total. But it's not even accurate. It's so far off. Just do a little math and just be prepared to hurry up and wait. Just hurry up and wait. And that's just get ready. But I do think placing of the mat would be nice, just because it would give you like that alert that, oh, they're right about to be here. Because like you said, right there in that little place we stay in, where there's a huge crowd because it's got shade and shops and it's like the halfway point. They cross us, and then like 200 feet later, they get the chip. I mean, they could put that like you said, before the bridge or in the middle. But I mean, whatever. You're gonna nitpick every little thing. But for that course, it's great just because you can see people at so many different points. So often that and people need it too, and it is one of those like very few run courses I found where your second loop doesn't take you anywhere close to the finish. A lot of races take you like right down the pipe, like Louisville. Here's your first loop, make a turn. Oh, look, you can stare right down the finishing chute. And then back for another one versus, Chattanooga, you come across the bridge, you can go to the left, and then you go out back right for your second loop instead of coming down the probably extremely painful downhill that is the finish line. But still, it's still a great course, and I'm sure that it's tough. Like I'm kind of surprised that they had mid 2000s, I think it went up bib wise for the race, and for a race it's been a little bit unlucky the last 2 to 3 years in terms of what gets people amped up to sign up for it and what doesn't. You have the favorable swim, and now it was canceled, but hopefully people understand that was like a once in a 20-year type thing. But then this year and the previous 2 years have just been insanely hot. And people don't generally like to. We all know what happened to Louisville. People quit going because it was just insanely hot. And tough, but it's still a good time of year. You still have a chance somewhat for favorable conditions, even though it hasn't been that way. But the course, the town, it really is awesome. And even though our athletes, obviously we're super glad to finish, they like the course. I'm not sure they want to do it again anytime soon with 94-degree heat with those hills, but bike course is great and fairly scenic, and it's usually like you said, a pretty point-to-point easy swim with a all but makes up for it hilly run.
Now, I was out. I did a run. I think it was on Friday and Sunday, but Friday and then Saturday I was walking around, and because like you mentioned, and I know it was a TVA's call, and there's nothing that Ironman can do. I just was thinking, to your point, I wish, almost wish they would have on Thursday said this swim is 99% unlikely to happen, or left some kind of gate on that, because frankly, I know the water had rushed over the thing, and so I spent a good chunk of my run kind of running up and down the boardwalk. I was actually looking for alternative exits for that swim, and I frankly didn't find anything. But I kept thinking back to Madison, because I was just there 2 weeks ago, and they had this similar problem with the flooding, and I got there and the whole swim exit entrance part was completely underwater, and a rocky shoreline, and there was no way they could have used it. And but one of the things I did notice was that they had massive sandbags out all along the boardwalk that were huge, and they were keeping the swell off of the bike path that runs along, Monona Terrace, and they had sump pumps going and all this other stuff. And I just had I'm not criticizing or anything. I'm just looking for ways to. Maybe it wasn't. I know there was the E. coli thing, and there was a lot of other issues that go along with it that I think go along with rivers, and rain and stuff like that. And it was just unfortunate for me. I just like to think about, and I'm not saying it was possible, but I was just looking, was it like 100% canceled on Thursday? Because we had a couple nice days after that, and then of course Sunday, and there was times during the day on Sunday when that boardwalk was not totally covered by water. You know what I mean? So, I
don't think it was the height of the water as much as it was the flow rate and the debris and the nastiness of the water.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
I think that was it. And then even maybe not as much the flow as much as the nasty part of the water, because by Sunday, they may have had an opportunity or two to kind of slow this flow just a little bit compared to what it was. And I know there's limits on the upside, and I don't know.
One of our athletes works for TVA.
Yeah, I know.
So he was able to pull up like on his own little app or whatever that he definitely didn't show us. About things and all that kind of stuff. So, tough call, not great, but hey, what are you gonna do?
Nothing. That was the point, I guess. But it's just, I sometimes I just want to figure it out. I just have that gene in me, I think.
Well, I'm sure
because I was looking at all the options, man. I was walking down to that, whatever that boat's called down there, Ma Bell or whatever. Southern Bell, Ma Bell.
Southern Bell.
And looking at their dock and thinking, okay, it might be a little bit longer, but it's faster. I'm sure they'd go a little bit further if this would work. And but that would have probably been not likely either. Either way.
Yeah, I'm sure they try to find a way, but
I have empathy, for the kids.
I know you do. For the kids. Good old Uncle Mike.
Mm-hmm.
He was the most popular guy on campus, that's for sure. But yeah, all good, and again, it's been a while since I've spectated a full in a while, and so it's so many great stories and things to overcome, and it's always just nice to sit and chill and hang out with athletes and hear their stories and just about life in general. It's as funny as like we were sitting in the lobby waiting for to walk down to the bike start, and we're sitting there, a bunch of our athletes, and just it's funny because nobody was talking about triathlon. Did you notice that? It was just like it was people. Alpan obviously was sharing some of his like crazy stories, like from overseas, and they got people talking about softball and playing in college, and there was like no talk of like triathlon, or it was just like just everyday chit chat, which I think is good because it kind of keeps you even keel. But there's so many different stories to tell, and then to watch everybody kind of take shape and do their thing and perform and just finish. I have to remind myself of things throughout the day as best I can, even though I sometimes quickly forget. We were walking back to the hotel last night, and I was just thinking, today was a good day. Mm-hmm. And listen, anytime all your athletes finish, it's a good day. Because like they work incredibly hard, and you're never probably going to go to a race where every athlete's race is going to go perfect. But you're always proud when they all finish, and they all make it, and they all get to cross the finish line because that's what they've been thinking about. And they make it, and they tough it out. And because, is it the finish? Sure, the finish is important, but there's also so many lessons they learn along the way. And how many things they can take from that day to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's always a good thing too. There's always lessons to learn and things you can take to go forward, and finding things that work. And then everyone's training was different and looked different and performed different. And it's a lot to go on, but it's great. And, while it's going to absolutely suck the life out of me and exhaust me again, I'll do it again in 13 days. And we'll be up there and have more support too. And it'll be fun, I promise.
Yeah, it'll exhaust me too in a different sort of way. I'll be doing it.
Yeah, you're racing and I'll be out there. Man, I don't know what's going to happen, because every time I came across a fan, or especially the kid, they were like, "Hey, are you Coach Robbie?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Where's Mike?" And I'm just like chopped liver. Like he's everyone's fan favorite. He's like Canada. Mike is like the Canada. And
I was surprised by the few number of selfies I ended up getting in this weekend, though. I did have a lot of people come up to me and say hi. A couple of people ran by during the race and came over and high-fived and everything. I guess I should have taken the selfie at that point.
Yeah, you should have.
I wasn't prepared.
But no, it was great to meet so many listeners and people that had, said they listen, and that it was good to meet some of them, albeit briefly. Got to check and chat with a lot of them coming out on the bike, and it's cool stuff. And it's always good to know that we're not half as terrible as we usually think we are. And we can usually help some people. But all in all, good. And I do have to say that and I'll definitely not for this podcast, but a different one, is just how many ways there are to skin a cat when it comes to training. How many different training styles and how much time people have, and how, I think just like one of the biggest things, I want to do like a real deep dive on this. It's maybe on Thursday. Because I think that one of the main misconceptions of training, don't get me wrong, training for an Ironman is a commitment. And it is, unless you're single and don't have a dog or any plants, it's not a joint. It's not, it is a joint commitment. It is, things get neglected even if you're single. You let plants die, your dog doesn't get walked as much, your yard probably looks like a jungle. It is a time commitment, but there's this huge misconception that because I get this question all the time when I get emails from athletes and they ask about certain things, or if they want to start working on a coach, and they're like, "So what kind of devices do I have to have?" I'm like, whatever you already have. There is no requirement to do 7-hour rides on a $25,000 bike with $10,000 race wheels, and it's just not. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to make a certain amount of money. You don't have to train this exact way. You don't have to do any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are so afraid to take a jump to 70.3 or 4. It's like, well, I don't have a power meter. I don't have this. I don't have this. Or I can't afford this. Or I can't afford this. Or I don't have this amount of time to train. Or I can't get any long rides. Or I can't do this. I'm like, listen, is it going to be ideal to you specifically to where you might reach your best athletic ability ever? Maybe not. But the most important thing, and the only thing that should matter, is that you do the best with what you have right now. Don't try to perform or exceed your expectations based on somebody else's lifestyle. Because so many people do it. They look at so-and-so and like, well, and you get athletes that travel 3 to 4 days a week. You get athletes that have 5 kids. You get athletes that are work 60 hours a week and have to get up at 3 to run on the treadmill. And could things be better if you removed all that? Sure, probably. But you probably wouldn't have those 4 kids at the finish line either. And so there's just so many things that to take into to not take into consideration and deep analysis on these have to haves. You know, and I just really would really encourage any athlete who has thought about stepping up to a different distance, or or has like this stereotype of what it takes to be, finish an Olympic, or even do your first triathlon. Like, whatever you have, less. You need running shoes. You need a bike. Like the essentials. Do you need a smart trainer? Nope. Do you need a power meter? Nope. You need a heart rate monitor? Nope. You need a fancy bike? Nope. You need race wheels? Nope. Do you need all this expensive shit? No. You don't.
No.
All you need is the commitment and the drive and the willingness to make it work with what you have. And because this, like we talk about it all the time too, like there's always this, especially the way that America is, it's everything's supersized. It's always, well, what about this? What if I add on this? What about this? What about this? There's always going to be an add-on or an I want more. But if that's the first place you look, that you think's going to make you better, then look again. Because the devices rarely make the athlete. They might make the athlete perform slightly better, but unless you're a consistent athlete who works hard all the time and is super objective and does the right things and takes care of their body and fuels appropriately, then none of that stuff is going to matter. It's just going to make your analysis of your inconsistency that much deeper. Because we saw it firsthand, I did, having people go out of the chute, watching how many different body types there are, how many different bikes there are, how many different expense accounts you see based on people's bikes. And I can guarantee you without a shadow of a doubt, if you haven't done a race, when you see people come back from the bike, believe me, the most expensive, most aero bikes don't always come in the front of the pack. It's the person, it's the engine. And Alpan was a great example. He was an athlete we've talked about before who did all but about 2.5 weeks of his training in Kuwait, I believe, or over in Syria, and his longest ride before September, his longest non-split ride before September 8th was 3 hours. Because he couldn't. I wasn't going to make him sit on some crappy spin bike in the training center in Kuwait for and even 3. I was like, I don't want to do this. Just a lot of double rides, and then he hit a double ride weekend the 8th and 9th. He had one long ride on the 16th, and that was it. And he ended up having a 6-hour bike split, and I think like an hour PR from his previous year, in tennis shoes.
Yeah, no clips.
Tennis shoes.
Yeah.
So just let it be a lesson. Like, if you want it bad enough and you have a good perspective and you want things to work out, then if you want things to work, then work for them. Don't buy things expecting them to work for you.
Well,
and just do the best you can with what you got.
Mm-hmm. I think that I don't know. I know a lot of people do know me, but I'm sure a lot of people out there have no idea about what my background is. And I started this thing when I was close to 50, and I've ridden with a power meter exactly 4 times. I've never had a heart rate monitor for the first 4 or 5 years of my training. I ran with a chrono watch, and I'm going into this one 2 weeks from now at Louisville, basically with the same, well, it is the same bike setup I've had since the first one. It's an older aluminum bike, and it was one of those things where I knew, my bike is fine. Maybe could it be a little more aero? Could it be a little lighter? Sure. But for me, it was always about, am I going to put in the work, to justify it, And that's just how I feel about it. And I feel like that bike's going to be fine. Like I said, I just got a power meter a few weeks ago, and I've ridden with it a few times. And I kind of struggle with it a little bit right now. Maybe I'll be using it over the winter. I probably will for some training stuff. But do I think it's the secret to any success that I might have? I don't know yet. I mean, it just doesn't matter, really. I like the idea of putting in time. I like the idea of riding. I mean, riding for me is hard enough without having to always think about, am I getting better, or am I, if I'm out riding hard and it feels hard to me, that's kind of good enough, as long as I'm doing it enough. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like, are you putting in the time and the work and the effort? I mean, you're going to get better.
That's it, man.
You're going to get stronger. And it's nothing, I mean, I do have to say, like, as we get more structured with my workout, I mean, workouts make a big difference. The types of workouts and I mean, over the last couple months now, I've been back on under your tutelage with your plan. And to me, that's what's making the difference. It's nothing to do with, I think that might give you some insight more, like if somebody has a power meter or some more statistics, it gives you an insight, but how to, you can gauge based on what I'm saying and how I'm putting forth the effort and how I feel and stuff like that as well. I mean, to your original point, it's like, it doesn't matter. Just get in the sport and start doing stuff. Start running, start getting in the pool. I mean, swim, get better, think about what you're doing, work on your form, work on relaxing while you're swimming, running, biking, and just, be more fluid, because the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yep.
That's pretty much the solution.
Hardest part of your run? Putting on the shoes and tying the laces.
Yep.
I mean, we've always, you and I have always talked about that. I mean, it is, and it's the same thing with getting into the sport, which is, it's funny, like, this is a huge time of year for athletes to, like, think about getting into a sport or talk about it, or, like, I just always, or like, this time of year is always kind of like transition. Then you get to January and it's like full on New Year's resolution, I'm going to do triathlon this year. But before you, dig really, really, really deep into, like, all the things that you need, work with what you have. Because if you can't work with what you already have, how are we going to work with more?
Yeah, it just gets more complicated too sometimes.
I mean, triathletes are the kings and queens of paralysis by analysis, or analysis by one of those two. And the early bird gets the worm. But they overthink, and it's just, don't let it suck the joy. Enjoy it, find yourself, in a good spot, and just do the best you can, like I said, with what you have. And then when you do that and you feel like you can't do it anymore, then maybe it's time to take a different step. But don't go all in all the time, and if you're not prepared to put the effort that's required to go all in. There's buying all in, which athletes love to do. But then there's commitment, dedication, and effort buy-in too, which is more important.
100%, man.
All right, we can wrap it up. You can go back to watching the Brewers, and I can go back to work.
Yeah. Oh, wait, was that a roundabout?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, I was just saying, you got Brewers. I got to catch a few things while the kid's away.
This is history brewing here today. Speaking of Brewers, first time ever that 2 divisional playoff games happened before a wild card game, which is pretty amazing.
I'm gonna hop on the train. It's like, let's not talk about sports today.
Okay, 1-1 1-1 in the top of the 6th. I will be getting back just in time to see a fantastic historical ending, hopefully.
Oh, well, let me know how it goes. If not, I'll see it on the ESPN.
You probably won't. They'll be covering Nick Saban, LeBron James all night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, good old ESPN.
Yep. All right, man. Well, we'll dig deeper into some things we learned as far as performance and preparation and race strategy and things like that on Chattanooga next time. Until then, I will be training for Louisville on my taper, and you can always...
I'll be dealing with everyone who's on taper for Louisville.
Yeah, how many athletes?
Oof, I think we have 25 toeing the line.
25 toeing the line at Louisville. If you're coming up there and want to support us, it might be a good day to stop by crushingiron.com and check out our store tab and look at the Crushing Iron shirts. We have a limited variety right now, but we have our new Spectator shirt, which I wore, which was really citable all weekend.
Very citable.
People were all on me, and which was great. It's a great way to support the podcast and get a little gear in the process. Yeah, I guess that's it. crushingiron.com has all the info. That's
it. And we'll check you on Thursday.
All right, thanks everybody. It was great to meet you over the weekend, and appreciate the shout out because that is our thing. Is that we're just facilitating enthusiasm for the sport we love, and your energy transferred to us is what keeps us going. So we really appreciate that.
Amen.
All right, man. We'll see you later.
Dude. See you, man.
Bye.